Hey, before I kick off the podcast, I just want to shout out Next Door Clothing. Next Door, a clothing brand based out of Bondi in Sydney. They're making really nice jeans and shirts and hats. So go and check out their full range at nextdoorsydney.com. They're also artists, so you can go and check out a range of art. They put on rad parties, and I love what they're doing. So nextdoorsydney.com for the full range. This is for Clementine and Otis. So if you're loving the podcast, subscribe on Apple, Spotify, or whatever platform you like to listen on and leave a review. It just helps me to keep producing weekly episodes. And also subscribe to the THT YouTube channel that we've just started. We have some carefully selected and fully filmed episodes by legendary skateboarding photographer Ryan Grant. As always, shout out to our major sponsor of the podcast, Indosol. Indosol are leaders in environmentally friendly and conscious fashion. They recycle motor vehicle tires and turn them into footwear that's just rad. Like Indosol have distributors in the USA, Indonesia, Europe, Singapore, Japan, and Australia. So go to indosol.com, that's INDOSOLE.com, and use code THT, and you'll get a 15% discount, and you'll be automatically directed to the distributor in your region when you use indosol.com. Next up, Kingpin Supply, best skate shop in the world, I reckon. Locally owned, best bunch of dudes. I love them. They're the homies. Kingpin stock carefully selected shoes, clothing brands, skate decks, hardware, and more. So go to kingpinstore.com, that's KINGPINSTORE.com, and use code THT at checkout. Get that 15% discount and support skateboarding. And lastly, big thanks to our sponsors, Crush Organics. I'm stoked on these guys. Crush Organics are the purveyors of the best full-spectrum CBD oils and topicals. CBD is an amazing natural supplement. It's an amazing natural anti-inflammatory. It aids recovery, post-workout, and improves well-being overall. Like, the research is out there now to support CBD products, and it's now fully legal in Australia, as it is in most parts of the world. So head over to crushorganics.com, that's KRUSHORGANICS.com, and use code THT at checkout and get that epic 40% discount. And man, it makes a massive difference, that discount. And there's fast shipping worldwide. Terrible happy talks. Terrible happy talks.
Yeah, good to be here, man. Whoa. Bit on par.
Submissive dominant lifestyle.
Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Alright, let's do this. Alright, so today's guest is Tim Silverwood. Tim is a surfer, award-winning environmentalist, ocean advocate, and co-founder of non-for-profit initiatives Take 3 for the Sea and Ocean Impact Organisation. Tim's sense of purpose and passion for making change has led him to deep sea adventures, TED Talks, featuring in documentaries and beyond. This week, Tim is with me live from his home on the northern beaches of Sydney, Australia, to share his journey, experiences, challenges, and hopes for the future. Tim Silverwood, welcome!
Welcome to me. Great to be here. Thanks for everyone for tuning in to this little conversation.
I love that. Welcome to me. It's so man, I appreciate you. In the short time we've known each other, I see an innate patience within you, and I just want to thank you for that.
Well, you got to have, when you know you're fighting the big fight and doing all that you can to help planet Ocean. Nothing happens overnight. Things happen pretty slowly. So I think I've got the patience to meet the task.
How task driven are you as an individual?
Definitely in my core. I think you mentioned a purpose-led career. Well, it's more than a career. It's every part of my lifestyle and my being. So yeah, I'm definitely driven by my mission. I get really meta on this subject, just even thinking about this wonderful, remarkable opportunity that we get to occupy these crazy earth suits for, it might be 30 years, it might be 10 years, it might be 100 years, but in the context of time, billions of years that this little planet's been holding life, it's just nada. It's nothing. So I want to make sure that I tread as lightly as I can during my stint and try and give as much back as I can, because so many other innocent creatures seem to be suffering the consequences of our one species behaviour, which irks me a lot.
I love that earth suit. I've heard flesh suit before as well. I love that analogy. I mean, is it that simple, Tim? Are we really just that insignificant in the scale of the universe?
I don't have the answers. I just kind of interpret it in my own way. I'm a scientist. Evolution to me is just remarkable. I look at every little living creature and in my perspectives, and I welcome everyone to have their own perspectives as long as it doesn't harm others. I just think, wow, how crazy that this little pale blue marble that we're lucky enough to coexist on has been spinning around doing its beautiful dance for this crazy amount of time. And I just happen to be here for so far 41 of those years. I've seen a lot of bad stuff happen to the planet in that time. I've seen my dolphins and my whale brothers and sisters and my turtles suffering, from the likes of plastic and our human behaviour. And I'm just not that into that. I'd rather see us have a little bit more of a light touch approach and make sure future generations get the same opportunity to dance this beautiful dance as we have.
Dance this beautiful dance. I love that. Given what you just said about, our role in the universe, I mean, I'm going to hit you with a bit of a hard question straight away. Like, can we make a difference to the environment in the short time that we are actually on this planet? Do you think, and is it worth the fight considering our lifespan?
This is something I had to challenge a lot with Take 3 for the Sea. I'd go and give all these big talks at international conferences and featuring these documentaries. And what am I ultimately doing? I'm asking people to go and pick up 3 pieces of plastic, and it is literally a drop in the ocean. It's like a thimble into a giant bathtub that is the entire ocean ecosystem. But what drove me and motivated me in all those early years was seeing that photograph of that one piece of plastic that killed or damaged a marine creature's chance of survival. So it still motivates me. I picked up plastic this afternoon and it was a bottle cap, the same bottle cap that's motivated me since day dot, because I saw bottle caps in the stomach of beautiful albatross, who just are marvelous creatures who have been flying over the open ocean for their entire existence, and along comes plastic and does what it does. So we're up against it, don't get me wrong, but the other side of that equation, I suppose, is just simply that what does not doing something look like? What does defeat look like? You never hear about people, the great leaders of any great nations, or going into battle, or, species up against the wall. You got to show leadership, and you got to do something, because one person's motivation or actions can lead a huge wave of people behind them.
So are you saying if you save one sea turtle or one albatross, you'd be satisfied with that?
Yeah, and I think I've got this remarkable opportunity now where, looking back on the success of Take 3 for the Sea and all my other environmental work, I don't need to have a trophy on the shelf that says you achieved X. I just know it. I know it because I'll bump into a little kid in the surf or on the street who says, "Oh, you came to my school and that was really cool what you said." And that you've just given them a little opportunity to, give themselves permission to sort of be the leader that maybe they were always destined to, but some other societal or other pressures were preventing that. So I don't need the trophy, but yeah, definitely. If I know I've made a positive impact, it makes me sleep better at night. And it means that I'm going to be motivated to keep taking the next step and the next step in my journey, for the rest of my years.
You've been mentioning Take 3 for the Sea, which is a beautiful initiative that's known worldwide. Since you started it, I think it would be over 10 years ago now. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's 2009.
How do you feel that initiative has evolved over the last decade? Are you happy with where it is right now since you conceived it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it was pretty tough. We didn't really sit down with a 30-page plan on how we were going to execute building a non-profit organisation. Myself and my 2 co-founders Mandy and Roberta, we were just driven by passion. And so we figured it out as we went along. A lot of people came along and helped us, and more people helped us. And eventually it's at the point now where, the organisation is supported a lot by donations from the public and from people who have the means to give. And then it's also supported by, brands that believe as well that we've got to tackle this problem, and they're leading with their front foot forward. So I'm super proud. On a personal note, like there's a lot of achievements in that building and leading of that organisation I'm proud of, but I'm really mostly proud of the fact I was able to hand it over to someone else and someone else's leadership. That wasn't easy, I can tell you that. Like, it stressed me out a lot. For better or worse, I'd put myself a lot as the sort of the spokesperson for the organisation, and that made it a little bit hard to unpack that. But I did it. It was a long 18-month process, my ultimate transition away from Take 3 for the Sea, and I stepped immediately into Ocean Impact Organisation. So I haven't really had a holiday from my environmental advocacy for a long time, but hey, that's the decisions I made.
Did you kind of feel like with Take 3 for the Sea, you were hanging your personal sense of identity on that towards the end, and that's why it was hard to let go of?
I'd probably done that too much in the earlier years, and then it was like a process of actively extracting myself from it. And I still think that's probably happening now. Like, for a lot of people, maybe some people tuning in, they might not have even heard about Ocean Impact Organisation. I mean, I only birthed that with my co-founder Nick 19 months ago. So February 2020 was the big transition phase, and it's a very different model. And there's not something with Ocean Impact Organisation. It's not as simple as saying, hey, all you got to do is pick up a few bits of trash. It's a complicated thing. We're ultimately trying to accelerate innovation and build startups that can help the ocean. So it's not as publicly appealing. Sure, the results of our work are very appealing because we get to the end of our campaigns and initiatives and we show people how awesome it is that these innovators and entrepreneurs are saying, you know what? I see opportunity where you see the ocean in demise and its health declining. We actually have solutions, and these solutions are going to appeal to investors. They might appeal to you as a customer or a consumer, or they might just appeal to you because you need a bit of sense of optimism that we've got this. So it's a very different prospect, but equally just as exciting. I mean, building organizations, I think I'm a born entrepreneur.
Yeah, man. I think you are too, for sure. I want to delve a little bit deeper into the Ocean Impact stuff. So just for a bit more clarity, you said that it's for organisations that want to help the ocean, help the sea. Like, in what way? Like, in industry and business?
That's right, yeah. So we're really trying to say, so the whole ethos and the sort of the reason why I was able to do this shift from that very traditional, human activation, behavior change, hey, just go out there and do these things, vote, all that stuff. We've got this. Now I'm actually getting into the commercial world, and the ultimate goal is to build new businesses that are regenerative and restorative by nature, but also influence bigger corporations to realize this is the market. This is where people need to be investing their dollars. And in doing so, that then shows politics that they can actually start to support industries that are doing good to the planet and to people, and stop supporting and being influenced by those that are screwing it. So it's a big play here. It's a very visionary idea, but I think there's a scope to do this because it is new and people are really embracing it.
Yeah, for sure. And just to help me, and I'm going to play devil's advocate a little bit here. So Take 3 for the Sea is effectively a beach cleanup initiative for those that don't know. Is that right?
I suppose the ultimate call to action is we want at Take 3 for the Sea everyone to respond to the problem by picking up plastic. But obviously, behaviour change then translates upstream. You vote with your wallet, you avoid plastic, you advocate, you do all that great stuff. But yeah, ultimately the call to action is pick up 3 bits of trash.
Right. Okay. So then comparatively to the Ocean Impact Organisation, you're then trying to you're trying to go another level above that and not just have beach cleanups, which is very necessary and awesome for community building, but you're now more focused on changing the culture of industry.
Yeah, that's it.
And the methodology.
And finding people that are innovating new solutions. Like, here's a good example. So, take 3 for the Sea, a big thing we'd find during cleanup events would be bits of polystyrene, right? Expanded polystyrene. It gets everywhere. One big polystyrene box could break into a million small little bits of polystyrene. We'd be picking them up everywhere. So with Ocean Impact Organisation, our first big campaign last year, it was called the Ocean Impact Pitch Fest, and we had businesses from all around the world put forward their business solution to solve ocean challenges. The winner was a business from Sydney called Planet Protector Packaging, who have an alternative to expanded polystyrene food boxes. They use wool waste from the wool industry in recyclable cardboard boxes so that you don't need to get your home delivery in polystyrene anymore. You get it in this stuff which is, naturally circular in its behaviour, no plastic. So, it goes to show that, you can deal with the problem or you can try and solve it as a solution.
Amazing. And past guest I had on the show, Nev Hyman, who you may have heard of him, prolific surfboard craftsman. In recent years, he had this amazing concept called the Nev House concept, where they were using trash, almost raw trash, and converting it into this paneling system for building emergency housing. And they actually used it on a cyclone-affected area, I think, of Vanuatu. And it's easy to erect and it's fireproof and it's very little processing down of this raw trash. Now, he made an interesting point in the podcast. He said that he feels that things like, recycling and beach cleanups are boutiques. He called them boutique solutions to a problem that is so vast, a waste problem that's primarily driven by industry and manufacturing, where waste by massive industry is being produced way faster than it can be cleaned up or processed effectively. And I guess it kind of got me thinking about how can we push more of these concepts to the public and get them thinking like that packaging company and like Nev were in terms of recycling, or what's the word I'm looking for? This secondary resource market of trash, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, look, that's definitely, the circular economy is the big buzzword that we use around this stuff. It's like, instead of extracting new resources from the planet and using non-renewable energy to fuel our existence, why can't we look at all our products and services with a circular mindset? Like, why can't we build that product out of waste that already exists in the system? And then the challenge is, well, how do you plug all those inputs into your supply chain? So maybe you're only using recycled components, maybe you're only using renewable energy to build, transport, repair your products. So it's a really exciting idea. The problem is, and this is why, Nev probably hasn't got his thing off the ground yet, is plastic is so bloody cheap. And it's cheap because the big petrochemical companies are just out there sucking up as much of the oil and the gas as they possibly can to saturate and drown the market with cheap energy and cheap fuels and cheap plastic. So, you look at anyone out there in the market who's using recycled materials to create their products, they're paying a premium, and they're going to pass that premium on to you until such times as it becomes cost competitive. So that's where government can really step in and start to subsidise and support those innovators who are finding new ways of doing things.
Yeah, do you think it's also because a lot of these manufacturing companies just don't have the infrastructure and even the machinery to do so? Like, it doesn't exist?
Yeah, and a lot of it's all been, globalisation has led to us offshoring all our industries. So a big one for Australia was glass and aluminium recycling. So some of the earliest recycling industries were born out of the fact that there would have been a scarcity. Like, why throw aluminium cans away when it costs more to go and extract it from the earth you wouldn't. The market would dictate that you set up that recycling infrastructure. But then as we've had globalization and obviously shipping just fuels the product supply chains around the world, it's become cheaper to offshore all these industries. So the aluminium smelters closed down, the glass recycling facilities closed down, the plastic recycling facilities are all over in Asia now. Now, we've had a really interesting situation where public pressure and science has shown us how bad this plastic pollution problem is. And now you've got people like Scotty from marketing saying, you know what, we're going to put a ban on exporting our waste to offshore markets because we've seen the footage on Four Corners or 60 Minutes of our plastic trash on a beach or in some community with a 7-year-old picking through it in Asia. So now we've actually got to then reverse the freaking table and re-establish these industries that closed down years ago, which is hugely expensive, but is the future. We need to be dealing with our own waste within our own borders, and there's huge economic opportunities and jobs available when we do that. We just need the leadership.
Are you that leader?
One of them. There's a lot. We need a lot of them. Need a lot of them in politics, in business, in communities, in schools, everywhere.
Like listening to you, and obviously your experience with this is vast and way greater than mine. And then when I start to think of the variety and of stakeholders in these in these things, like I said, politicians, business owners, down to the factory labourers. I just feel really overwhelmed. And I went through a period where I was like, you know what, I'm never going to make a difference. But then I just had this moment, and I can see it in you, where I'm like, well, no, when I repurpose and recycle, or even when I compost my food scraps, it just feels like a really nice way to live. And at that level, and if I know that I've bought some clothing that's all organic cotton, sustainably harvested hemp, material for clothing, I wear it and I feel good, and it does something to my soul. Do you feel like that?
Yeah, I do. I think it's really important to realise and to acknowledge that, we're not all meant to be built the same. Like I've chosen to take a very unorthodox approach to my career and my life. That doesn't mean that I'm projecting that upon you. Like if you choose to recycle or you choose not to, you choose to compost, it's ultimately your decision. I just want to set up the rationale, the reasoning as to why it needs to be the way it is. My hope is that you'll participate and that you'll feel good about doing it, but I'm not going to defriend you if you don't.
That's a good point. I was going to say, are you militant in your beliefs?
No.
Okay.
No. My way has always been, particularly since I realised the power of my voice and getting up on a stage or producing a documentary, I'll much rather use my energy very efficiently on that stage or in front of that camera than I will having an argument with someone on the street. Like my energy is a finite resource, and I'm going to put it to where it's best used.
And you know what? Thank you for your energy tonight. And would you so you're sort of saying you're not selling anything to anyone. You're working on attraction rather than promotion?
Yeah, I guess. It's a world of communications, and just by putting your face to your phone or typing some text onto a post. That's selling. Like you're still putting your values out there, but I'm not berating anyone if they don't pick up what I'm putting down.
Is that your advice to other environmentalists?
I think the world could do with a bit more of that. Yeah, I think I think the most important thing is to be values led. A lot of the stuff that goes on out there and is the promotion of things that maybe they're not actually linked back to people's values. They're doing it because of other reasons. And when that's not clear to the person who's receiving that marketing message, that can be a little bit toxic. I'd obviously encourage people that are in that position where they have a voice, they have a huge sphere of influence, to sort of bring some of that values-led decision-making into that.
I love that, values-led decision-making. It's It's a great term. It needs to be, thought about some more and promoted more, I think. So tell us a little bit about your academic background. You said that you're a scientist. Like, did you study environmental science, or what was your background before you went into becoming an ocean advocate and passionate environmentalist?
So I was a pretty passionate teenager. I'd pick up all sorts of magazines and zines and things that spoke about either human rights issues or environmental issues. It would be picking up a David Suzuki book, or watching David Attenborough, or whoever the voices were who seemed quite bold in conveying something which you could just tell they weren't doing it for any other reason than they felt it was really important. So that meant that throughout my high school, I was really attracted to geography and the sciences, but geography especially, because I think for whatever reason, I realised that I was just this one little speck in amongst this huge sea of activity on this planet. And so I wanted to understand more about the rest of the world. So, I went to Uni of Newcastle, did a Bachelor of Science in Sustainable Resource Management, which was good. I really enjoyed it. I love the fundamentals, but I often tell people that just as important as my Bachelor of Science was my Bachelor of Life, which was putting on a backpack and taking my surfboard or my snowboard and going around the world and living with those communities and cultures I used to read about in textbooks and seeing it with my own eyes. And by the time I'd traveled my heart out through my 20s, I was like, okay, I think I've got a bit of a picture now. I've got some fundamental knowledge. Thank you very much, university, and a bit of a debt to pay off, but so be it. I've got, my Bachelor of Life under my belt. Let's go. And so at 29, I was raring to do something, and that's when Take 3 for the Sea was born.
Do you actually remember the moment when you came up with that idea? I love to hear that from people, because I often hear some entrepreneurs who come up with an idea, they say that they had a moment of clarity or an epiphany one day when the idea just hit them and they're like, I'm going to do this. Can you tell us about, if you had that moment?
Yeah, I'll give you some context. So Take 3 for the Sea was actually Mandy and Roberta. So they had the idea already, which was awesome. And I just sort of came in and said, you know what, guys, I'm going to help you take this somewhere. And that was really my role. My aha moment had sort of come from all those traveling odysseys, a lot of surfing through Asia and Indo. But the straw that broke the camel's back was I went snowboarding up in the Himalayas in Kashmir, on the border between Pakistan and India. And so there I was in this little hamlet, this little village up in the hills, up in the mountains, and my curiosity got the better of me, and I followed the trail of where all the rubbish that was being collected from the lodges and the guest houses, where it was going. I don't know, maybe I stumbled across the tractor one day, and I followed it, and it went over the side of a hill. And I was like, shit, my trash is now polluting the Himalaya. And I felt really bad. I felt terrible. And I even actually thought I could fix this. So I went back the next season and spent 2 months living there trying to solve their waste problems. That was a pipe dream. But yeah, that was one of the straws that broke the camel back. And then I got some inspiration along the way. I ran into Dave Rastovich when he was doing his transparency voyage from Byron Bay to Sydney, talking about the cove and talking about the threats to dolphins and cetaceans. And I thought, shit, man, Dave is one of my idol surfers. He can do something. Why can't I? And so it was actually at Avoca Beach Picture Theatre one night in 2009 for a screening of The Cove that Dave and the crew had put on. They let me up on stage and I said, I want to do something to get this problem of plastic addressed in our community. And Mandy's next door neighbour was in the audience and joined the dots. And within a few days, I was sitting down talking to Mandy and Roberta. So pretty cool origin story.
Amazing. So you just had this intuitive sense that day on the mountain, and it just sparked something in you. Like you said, you had this feeling like it didn't feel good. Like you mentioned you're an entrepreneur. How often do you work on your intuitive sense or your gut instinct? People say that, like, is that something you rely upon when making decisions and, moving forward with things, would you say?
Far out. Yeah, it is. And it pains my wife, and it's probably pained a lot of my ex-partners and friends and family. I was in this magazine Dumbo Feather a few years ago, and I had this really great interview with the editor. And one of the headlines he pulled out is Tim is part of the slow decision maker movement. And that's genuinely me. Like, I'm this slow, calculated decision maker. I don't do rash decisions because I look at some of the decisions that really impact the planet and impact people, and they haven't used what we call in science the precautionary principle, where you factor out all the possible scenarios and then you assess those and then you make a rational decision about whether or not to do that. And if we don't do that, then we make fundamental errors of our judgment that have these multiplier impacts. So I'm a slow decision maker.
So no knee-jerk reactions for you.
Nah. I mean, but then you have things like, surfing or other parts of your life where literally decisions happen in a split second and they're beautiful decisions with whatever the consequence is, so be it. So, you don't always have the luxury of that time and using your gut, but, where you do, you do.
Yeah, man, that sense of consciousness, like, I think it's something that is synonymous with a lot of great change makers. They all say a very similar thing to you, is that they work off that, and I mean, it's as cliche as it sounds. Listening to your heart and being conscious in your decisions and ideas, I think, is so crucial. Now I'm gonna hit you with a question. Like, you've established two great initiatives. I know Ocean Impact is still fairly new, but already successful. Like, what advice would you give to a potential, environmental entrepreneur such as yourself who wants to start out?
Yeah, I think a big part of, like, similar to that last little tangent we were on, is putting yourself in the equation. Like, I think that I always forecast quite a few steps ahead. So when I think about things like planning to start Ocean Impact Organisation, I was very clear on, what does it feel like to work in that organisation? Not just tomorrow, not just next year, but in 5 or 10 years' time. Knowing myself and my work styles. Like, one of the first things I did with my co-founder was we sat down in front of a big sheet of butcher's paper and just spoke about the kind of people that we are. Like, who are you? What do you like? What are the things that irk you? What lifts you up? Like, know yourself. People often try and put themselves as a square peg into a round hole and then wonder 2 years later why they're unhappy and why they're miserable. Like, you got to know yourself and be honest with yourself. So there's just a couple of the things that I like to start with. How does it make you feel in the future? What do you know about yourself? What do you love? What do you hate? And navigate yourself around those things. Because it's like that age-old adage, if you find a job that you love, then you never work a day in your life. Like, I've been making huge sacrifices for my environmentalism over the years, but every time it feels a bit rough, I look and go, but you're doing something that you chose to do, that you actually inherently enjoy. So, set yourself up for the longer term goal, and you'll get there.
I mean, pragmatically, has it afforded you a comfortable lifestyle where you can live, and provide for your family?
Yeah,
your wife?
Yeah, it has. I mean, it's just, I don't have any kids. It's just me and my wife, and we live a pretty simple existence. But it's when you're an entrepreneur as well, like, you do become a hustler naturally, right? You have to hustle in order to make it all transpire and work out that way. So my wife and I, we're both really personal driven hustlers, and we make it we make it work. And and I'm not saying, like, there's an important probably point here to talk a little bit about privilege. Like, I do not come from any money or anything like that, but I come from a safe home. My identity is in check because I've had a stable upbringing. So, I've got a lot of support around me. It may not be a check in the mail every month, but it's support. And that is a really important ingredient to allow people to be their best. So I don't want to say for a second, like, that this is available to everyone. We're all different.
I mean, do you feel like are you taking risks constantly?
I think Yeah, I mean, naturally I am. I mean, starting a brand new organization with no great safety net behind me was a risk, but again, it was a calculated one. I spent 18 months figuring out how to do that transition. The way I looked at it was that, this plan that I've created, forecasting all these possible scenarios, it's a bet I'm willing to take. And if it falls over and falls flat, I'm going to have mud on my face. I'm going to have a few bruises and scrapes, but I can see that it's going to be okay. I'll be able to pivot and I'll be agile. And that's again back to being sort of that entrepreneurial mindset. You make it work.
Yeah, have you become comfortable when you're in that space of uncertainty? Are you comfortable in that, or do you stress out?
I like to have. I think that it's all about the pre-work for me. I want to try and minimize the likelihood of the scenario that would be least favorable. Sure, if I face that scenario, then I'll address it as need be. But I do try and do that minimization beforehand.
Like risk management,
something like that. In my own weird way.
I love that you didn't pretend there. You said, "Look, I'm an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs are hustlers." Like, I love that. Like, it's I've met numerous entrepreneurs now, and but they're also the ones that make amazing change, and they can often have like really big wins or really big losses, and they're brave enough to put themselves in that space, like no risk, no reward, or no change. And I've just got so much admiration. For me personally, I'm scared to do that. I work in my safe teaching job, which I love, don't get me wrong, but it's safe. I know where my income's coming from every week, and I'm always very curious to see how people like you function in that space mentally.
I suppose the difference maybe with me and some of those other entrepreneurs is, my hustle is a bit more like longer term. Like, I was 29 when I started Take 3 for the Sea. That was a 10-year journey with a bit of hustling along the way to make it all work. And then, I'm signing up for another 10-year journey with Ocean Impact Organisation. So It's not like I'm just booming and busting along the way in order to get to some destination. I'm pretty sure where I know I want to go.
Amazing. Now listen, I want to hear about. I know you've probably told this story 1,000 times, but I'd like to hear it, and maybe some of my listeners haven't heard it. But you sailed 5,000 kilometers to the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, the notorious Great Pacific Garbage Patch. So I just want to know about that adventure, man. Can you give us the background, why you did it, what it was like? I just want to hear the story. Yeah. So I mean, it was as soon as I made that decision to join Mandy and Roberta and start Take 3 for the Sea, it was crazy. Like, I just became fully consumed by it. So I started building all these international networks with the scientists and the activists who were fighting this plastic pollution fight. Because you've got to remember, back in 2009, it was micro. It was nothing like it is today. And so in doing so, I found out that there was this group based out of Los Angeles called Algalita, who was essentially headed up by the guy who discovered this Great Pacific Garbage Patch back in 1997. So here's this guy who's the hero. He's sort of, I don't know, I lost the word, but like his predecessor, or the one down, is a guy called Marcus Ericsson, who's sort of taken upon the legacy to be Charlie's arms and legs to get this science conducted and lead activism. And so he was the one leading the expedition. So I just joined in with these 10 other, ragtag activists and documentary makers and sailors, and away we went. We left from Honolulu, and I'll never forget it, just getting out the harbour at Ala Moana Bowls. It was like a 4 to 5 foot day. Yeah,
there was these peeling left-handers coming in, and you got like, is it that picnic point or whatever that body surfing wave is, and I'm just going, here we go. I'm not going to see, by the time we'd rounded the western side of the island and then went up the top tip of Oahu, that was the last time I saw land for 3 weeks. It wasn't until we got into, towards Vancouver Island, we pulled into Victoria, was the first place, and it was just like crazy. The land was just moving like a ship. It was wild.
Did you get seasick on that trip?
I did, yeah. I mean, it's pretty crazy because we were sailing. We'd be on a lean for 7, 8, 9 days, and then we'd do a pivot, and then there was all sorts of conditions.
God.
But some of the highlights were just like sailing at night time, like the quietness, and you're up there just sailing underneath the stars and the colour of the ocean. Went swimming out there a few times in the middle of the sea. We got sort of becalmed in the middle of the ocean for a few days. It was just surreal.
Becalmed as in there was no wind?
No wind, yeah.
Because you just...
That's actually the reason why this Great Pacific Garbage Patch sort of sits where it is, because you've got a giant high-pressure cell that sort of hovers over this giant body of the ocean. And so all the currents sort of allow this still spot in the middle, and that's what Captain Charlie Moore discovered back in 97. He was becalmed, and all around him was this, human detritus. And people knew there was plastic in the ocean. It was washing up on beaches, but no one had ever imagined that the ocean currents would sort of push it around the planet, and that eventually it would start to accumulate in these gyres, as they're called.
I was going to say, what's that? What's a gyre? So a gyre is not an ocean current.
It's kind of like a vortex, like a big whirlpool. Yeah.
Where the ocean currents of the world effectively spin.
That's right.
And don't go anywhere.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you want to get an idea of how dynamic the ocean is, if you search into your YouTube, NASA Goddard ocean currents, and you'll get these crazy animations of the way that the currents. So we know, obviously, here in Australia, we've got the East Australian current, the Llewellyn current, but the ocean's just constantly moving, and it transports nutrients. It changes the temperature of the ocean, which therefore affects the climate. Like, we get to live on this Earth because of the way the ocean moves and how that impacts our climate. So, yeah, it's wild.
So when you went there, like, what was your first impression when you seen that spectacle that is?
It was actually underwhelming, man, because like this is the flip side, right? So since Charlie Moore came out and started talking about this Pacific Garbage Patch, and then the media really jumped onto it probably in the late 2000s, it's taken on this misnomer that there's a floating island of trash out there, which there's not, because as we were just talking about, the ocean's always moving. So if you go out there when the ocean's been wild and crazy, it pushes all the plastic down to the deeps of the ocean. Some of it will never come back. It'll end up getting, accumulated with life, and it will end up sinking. Others will go here, it'll go there, it'll go everywhere. So there's enough plastic in the ocean to create giant islands, but it's dispersed because the ocean's massive, and the plastic never actually holds its state forever. It just starts to degrade. It doesn't biodegrade. It's not like what's happening to your compost. Like, microbes aren't turning plastic into beautiful nutrients for the depths of the ocean. They're turning it into micro and nano plastics and fibers that are then entering the food chain, that are then circulating through the food chain, and whether we like it or not, getting back to us. They're even finding now that the surface wind across the ocean picks up the micro and nanoplastic particles, sweeps it up into the climate, and now we're getting rain precipitating the plastic from the ocean. That's how screwed up our impact on the planet is.
What? I never heard that.
I know. It's hectic.
That's crazy, like an acid rain.
Yep, but little bits of plastic.
And can't that stuff turn into like a plastic sand? They call it plastic sand. Gets mixed up.
That's what you even like.
It goes that fine.
Exactly. So even that's probably when I talk about, the actual experience of the garbage patch itself on the ocean was underwhelming, because it was mostly this micro and nanoplastic. Sure, it was shocking because we'd do scientific analysis and we'd pull out the nets and we'd see the micro and the nano, and that was terrifying because I could imagine and see the scale of the ocean, having just spent 3 weeks on it. But the most shocking part of that whole experience was just going to the big island of Hawaii, down to the southeast corner. There's a place called Camilo Beach, where for whatever reason, the currents of this part of the island push so much plastic ashore. You've got to go to any of the windward beaches across the Hawaiian archipelago, you're going to find crazy plastic pollution, but some of these beaches will have plastic sand. It's like confetti, and this is stuff that's been in the ocean for, it could be decades, and it's just nasty, gnarly stuff.
Yeah, when you say windward, so for example, I was living in Bali for a few years, and, I guess in the wet season when the winds are on shore, like for example, Canggu, Echo Beach, it's knee high in rubbish, and it's like it's mind blowing. All the the rubbish has been blown in. But then if in dry season when the winds are offshore, the beaches are as beautiful and as pristine as anywhere, and it's like you'd never know there's a problem. So
totally, and
is that
even
what
like
you mean by
along
windward?
exactly right, yeah. So weather conditions will dictate everything. Could be Sydney Harbour, you have a big southerly, you go to a beach that faces south, you're going to see the pollution after a rain event. If it's blowing northerly, it'll be the opposite. And even like when you're walking, the east coast of Australia here, we might get a couple of east coast lows, and suddenly the beach has got plastic sand because maybe one of these ocean gyres has formed part of that east coast low weather system, and it's been pushed up onto the shoreline. I remember one instance I actually got a scientist from Macquarie Uni to come down to Bondi Beach. So I'm like, mate, this pollution, it doesn't seem right. There's a bigger story here. He's like, no, it just would have been that these ocean gyres are moving around. Those masses of plastic are contained within that swirling current, and then a storm comes along and blows it on shore. You're going to get almost equivalent to what you'd see in somewhere like Hawaii on your own doorstep. So the ocean moves in strange ways.
But what's it going to take for the average person to really want to initiate some change in their life and their practices? What's it going to take for people to actually make change on an individual level and consciously consume and think about where they're getting their stuff from and reusing the materials that they have? Is it going to be to the point where they can't go to the beach and swim because it's so covered in trash? I don't know. I don't know what the solution is.
Yeah, I don't know either. I mean, it's probably a multitude. It could be this podcast. It could be the IPCC report last week. It could be Lewis Hamilton sharing footage of him picking up plastic bottles on some Greek island. It could be a documentary that you stumble across. It's just you've got to have an open heart and an open mind, and then sort of say, well, sure, I'm not going to be the one person who's going to fix it, but I don't mind playing my part. I don't mind picking up that trash. I don't mind saying, no, I'm not going to purchase that product, or talking to that cafe owner and saying, hey, man, have you thought about not using plastic for this? Or maybe you dust off that keep cup that, got thrown in the cupboard when COVID came along, and you say, oh, it might be a little bit harder, but I'll take it on board. It's any way, shape or form. Just do something.
And keep the conversation going.
Keep the conversation going. You have a sphere of influence. You may not have 1 million followers, but you have a mum and a dad or a sister or a brother or a friend, and you can influence people for good if you care.
You can influence people for good if you care. I love that. It's so true. Given the state of the world at the moment, do you feel like people's attention has been diverted away from the sustainability conversation?
Yeah, and that's understandable. I think we're a selfish, self-absorbed species that has always put ourselves at the centre. Just like, the possums outside and the rats and the microbes in my veggie garden and the worms in my compost bin, they don't care so much about me. They care about themselves. So that's a pretty natural, innate trait. So, we've got a gnarly thing happening to our species that our generation hasn't experienced before. Talk to some oldies, though, and they'll tell you about how they've lived through it. They've lived through the wars. They'll tell you just to sort of, scrub the dirt off your knees and just get on with it, because, we're an amazing species. We are incredible. But what I really struggle with is that in the context of this planetary, demise, this climate crisis, we can't do the most important thing of all, which is to put a forecast lens on, to use that precautionary principle I spoke about before. We only seem to care about this sort of close proximity stuff. We can't look ahead, but we've got to look at our kids and our grandkids and say, well, that's them. They're the ones that are going to be copying this in a huge way. We're already copying it. A lot of people around the world are copying it. But, we're terrible at forecasting and making decisions for the long term.
Yeah, I just think that mentality has been bred into us through mass consumerism and brainwashing and advertising and this culture of you must be maintaining new items, constantly. I guess, was that from the Industrial Revolution? Is that how that all started? Like back in the, turn of last century?
Yeah, you're probably going to start getting into neoliberalism and capitalism is probably where it all went really south. I mean, we've only got to look at our Indigenous brothers and sisters and Indigenous cultures all around the world to make you realise that you can have a long, beautiful tenure, a long stint on this planet and tread super lightly. Not to say they didn't have impacts. Of course they did. They were consumers, but they were consuming with, beautiful longevity in mind. They'd have totems that they would have to revere and respect and make sure they preserve. They would only take at certain times because they knew that there wasn't this never-ending infinite abundance. They had to care and nurture and act as custodians. Gosh, if we could be custodians right now, we'd be living very differently.
That's amazing. That's one example that comes to me as a little kid. I just remember in the garage just watching my dad just use all the Vegemite jars and peanut butter jars and putting his screws and nails in. And that was the first time I went, oh, he's reused that jar, like he'd be washing them out all the time and, scraping them out till there's literally nothing left in those jars and making sure they're on his toast. And then he'd wash them out and reuse them for his nails and his screws. And then they're being used forever, and that was the first moment I was a little kid, just went, oh, wow, you can just reuse stuff like that. I don't know. It's that simple.
So good. And the value of these things, I mean, we put a nil value on waste. That's why we throw it in the bin, or even worse still, flick it out of the car or leave it at the skate park. We put a nil value on it. We paid money for the product or the service, but we don't want what's left over. We just wanted that bit. And then you watch things like, I get into this show it's on SBS or Binge, called Alone, where they drop people out in the wilderness, and the whole idea is you've got to survive with 10. You get to each take 10 items in amongst your, you got your obviously your survival gear, but you get to take 10 items. And they'll go scavenging along shorelines. They'll find a plastic jug, or a guy I just watched on the one last night found a rusted metal nail, and he was like, oh my gosh, I found this. And it's like, it was a piece of trash, but to him, it's so valuable because it has a value and a purpose.
Do you think you can handle being dumped out in the middle of nowhere for a time?
I live vicariously through these nut jobs, mate. I think it's remarkable. I find it's such, I think for me, with the sustainability lens that I live by, there's nothing quite like that show to make you realise how important every resource is, and the love that people have for the animals that they kill, and they use every part of that creature, and it is pure sustainability, and it's just raw and beautiful. I love it.
Oh, I love that you're saying these things. I think they're beautiful messages to put out in the world. So thanks, Tim, for saying that, because I love that stuff too. I've been, obviously monitoring you from afar for some time, and I do just want to just hear your experiences with some of the, I guess, broadcasting work you've done in the public space. So you were, I guess, a guest on that really popular ABC series, The War on Waste. Can you just maybe tell us how you were identified as the guy that they wanted to talk to about the plastic problem, the ocean plastic problem? Do you feel like you were identified as the ocean plastic guy, or I don't know?
I guess so. I mean, part of, building and leading Take 3 for the Sea was not just looking after the interests of that organisation. It was about the cause at the heart of it, right? So my network became really extensive. I mean, I was up there lobbying and, doing the work of the crowd at the spear point. I was down at Parliament House. I was running those rallies. I was sneaking into the Coca-Cola AGM and putting the chairman, giving him a serving. Like, I was doing all that stuff. And so naturally, I suppose, you look as a producer of that documentary and say, well, who are the crew that are fighting the fight against waste? And I was one of them, and love it. I still love that stuff.
What about what were some of the, I guess, downsides to being in the public sphere like that though? Was there any kickback negatively?
No, I think sorry, I'm
going to reframe that question. Sorry, Tim. Do you find that when you are public like that, you become more subjected to criticism?
I think you do, but sort of right back to the earlier conversation around being really sort of values led. Like I don't say things for the sake of saying them. I don't say a lot of things. Like I don't. There's a lot of people out there who have a voice right now, and they talk too much. They try and put up so much stuff. They've got to have opinions about this, that, and the other, and it just doesn't come across as being authentic. Like, how can you? You know, maybe you can. Maybe I'm the odd one, but I just don't want to. I don't want to have an opinion on this, that, and the other. I want to stay in my wheelhouse. I want to do the best work I can have, and I want to do it so that I'm preserved, that I'm a happy, healthy human through the experience. Because I reckon a lot of people put themselves in really hot water, or they put themselves on a ledge by trying to do and say too much, and that's not me. That's not my style.
So personal sustainability?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely.
Because sustainability, like, is all encompassing of the individual. It's not just, the external, it's the internal.
More than that's the most important one. When you were talking about the life advice before, you've got to know yourself and know what makes yourself thrive before you can go and do the rest of it.
You're an avid surfer. You're very open about that, and I love that. I'm a surfer as well. It's just done so much for my life, and I can tell it's done the same for you. I mean, it's given me my health. It's given me my, physical and mental well-being. Do you have any other personal practices that you do to maintain good well-being or strong well-being?
Yeah.
Aside from surfing, like, do you meditate, yoga?
Yeah, meditate, yoga. Go for a little run on the beach, go for a swim, just spend time in nature, like know when to switch off. Like I had a little campfire out the back tonight, like just all that sort of stuff, nourishing stuff, spending quality time with my wife and my friends. Just again, whatever makes you operate at your best, embrace it. And if you know things are not making you at your best, then just give that a nod, acknowledge it, make a little note and see if you can work on it.
Dude, I love that. Thanks for sharing that. So, Ocean Impact Organisation is really starting to kick off. You're well into it now. But what's next for you? Is it just to keep developing that organisation, or any other plans in the works?
Yeah, well, there's a big personal and professional development journey that I'm going on through Ocean Impact Organisation. Admittedly, like I was in a really nice, sweet and safe space with Take 3 for the Sea, right? I was a grassroots activist. I ran my own show, but I felt that really strong urge to level up and to go and play where I hadn't felt that comfortable playing before. Like I'm an anti-capitalist and I'm really left-leaning. There's a lot about going into this world of big business and big money. Like the ultimate goal of Ocean Impact Organisation is to try and get as much money from those traditional investments that support industries that wreak havoc on the planet and hurt people, to get those same people and those same investment institutions to back the businesses that are going to help restore a healthy planet and a healthy ocean and help people. So it's a big thing. And so there's all that going on. There's obviously politics. Like how can you not be a passionate environmentalist and a change maker and not have one eye on what the hell's going on with politics and how much better it needs to be? I'm not ready to go and play there yet, but who knows, in 5 or 10 years' time, once I've gone and shown the world, shown myself that I'm comfortable with business and comfortable with money. I'm not currently that comfortable with big money. So once I've got that sorted, then who knows what's possible.
It's interesting, but there's a real cultural and paradigm shift. I think people really do want ethically produced goods. And I know that a lot of big businesses do want to create that image that they're doing that, right? There is a desire there. Do you think it's just a matter of tapping into those corporations and getting the money out of them that way?
It's just got to figure it out on a balance sheet for them. It's the economics of it. They look at the data and they know that the sentiment is there, and people like you and I and others listening in will probably pay a little bit more for that product on the shelf if it meets our values and expectations on human, environmental, social matters. So that's where all the data is heading. But at the end of the day, does that cost them more? Is that jeopardizing another product line that they've already got that's driving huge revenue growth? Like, they'll make decisions for the shareholders at the end, because that's how capitalism works. And so that's why we've got to simultaneously affect change on so many levels. And one of those is making capitalism more conscious, because it's been an absolute bastard to people on the planet.
Sorry, making capitalism more conscious. I love it. And it has been a bastard.
It's been terrible.
Yes. People are suffering from it. And I think it's almost a beautiful way to end, Tim. I mean, I've just, I don't know, you are a innately engaging speaker. I can see why people are attracted to what you do and your causes, because the passion just comes out of you. And I think, like you said earlier, people want authenticity, and they can identify authenticity. They can sniff it a mile away, and they can also sniff bullshit away, in my opinion, as well. So, yeah, man, full power to you, bro. I'm so stoked. Now, listen, man, I ask all guests to come to the podcast with a cause that they want to support or advocate for. And obviously, you've got a couple of your own, but is there anything else in particular you'd like to advocate for today?
Yeah, sure. Like, I grew up on the east coast of Australia, on the central coast. Now I live on the northern beaches, and a global issue which is threatening our very beautiful shores right here is this Stop PEP 11 campaign. It was started a few years ago through Natasha Dean, an incredible Newcastle-based woman who started the organisation Save Our Coast. That was when one of the companies involved in the project was doing seismic testing, which, if you don't know about seismic testing, it's shocking. It's happening right now down off the southern coast of Victoria, near King Island. A company's just started a few days ago, much to the opposition of fishermen and industry groups. Yeah, it's a shocking one.
Excuse my ignorance. I don't know about it. Can you just, maybe for those that don't know, can you just give us a really brief overview of what's going on?
Yeah, so that campaign, if you just go look up No Gas Across the Bass, Surface for Climate are really leading the charge on that one down there. But yeah, seismic testing, it's a technique that they use to monitor the seabed and to identify where there's potential reserves of gas and oil. But the intensity of the blast that they use to sort of create these vibrations from the air blast just nails everything, particularly those highly sensitive species. But they've identified at risk everything from planktons right the way through to whales. So the entire marine food web gets impacted. So that was happening off our coastline for a number of months, if not years. But now they've made it even worse. They got reasonably good evidence of that there was gas reserves out there, and now they've gone straight in this bullish behaviour to want to get out there and start drilling for gas immediately. And this is all part of Scotty from marketing's gas-fired recovery, and that gas is a better fossil fuel, all this bullshit. So that's a really important one. Surfrider Foundation, Surface for Climate, Save Our Coast, follow those guys and get involved, and let's put this one to bed. It needs to go.
Are they doing that? Are they doing the seismic testing as part of PEP 11?
They did. They used that to map the area. That's what motivated Natasha to start the whole thing in the first place. So no one even knew that this was going on. So PEP 11 is just the name of the exploration permit that covers this 4,500 kilometre squared body of ocean. These bodies of ocean are all around the country. Of course, Australia is an exporter of these fossil fuels, and that creates jobs and it creates economic prosperity. There's massive gas fields off the northwest coast. I suppose at the core of this campaign is saying the entire East Coast doesn't have any of this infrastructure yet. There's no gas and oil projects offshore. It's a huge migration route for the humpbacks that have been decimated in the past. It's a massive tourism issue. It's a health and well-being issue. So we just don't want it. We don't want it here. Find other places to do it, and in the process of doing so, stop your focus on fossil fuels and support the transition to renewables, because that's where the jobs and the economic benefits of the future are going to be when we transition across.
The transition to renewables. Yes, sir. Thank you. Awesome. And I'm going to put a link to all of those organisations that Tim just mentioned in this episode's show notes. So if you scroll down, click on the link, educate yourself, find out how you can support, donate, be involved, and be active, be an activist. Let's go. And Tim, I have a present for you. Our friends at IndoSoul will be sending you a pair of flip-flops or slides made from upcycled motor vehicle tyres. So thank you for being on. They give all guests a pair of shoes, so thanks for that.
Thank you very much, IndoSoul.
And and you can find this episode on terriblehappytalks.com and all of the major podcast platforms such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Buzzsprout, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, and whatever platform you like to listen on. It always helps if you subscribe, leave a review. But if you don't, that's cool. I'm just glad that you're listening. So thanks very much, everyone. And, dude, I think that's it, man. It's been over an hour. It's been such a pleasure.
And if you like the words that spill out of my mouth, I've got my own little podcast, the Ocean Impact Podcast, so you can catch plenty of convos about all things ocean, which is
where can
my
people
bag.
Where can people listen
that's
to
everywhere
that?
from YouTube to Spotify and Apple and all those ones. So just search Ocean Impact Podcast, you'll find it.
With you and your co-founder?
Mostly me. He does. He did a dozen episodes of the about 55 that we've got out so far, but mostly me.
Amazing. Yeah, and you're interviewing people, or are you speaking individually?
Interviewing people. Yeah, it's good fun.
Hey,
Love it.
what do you enjoy about it the most? Producing a podcast.
Yeah, I think it's just I like forecasting again to the people that are actually listening on the other side of this thing once you've produced it. So yeah, it's like just taking that conversation down its little wavy little river to get to the sea and hoping people enjoy the ride.
In terms of a medium for advocacy, how effective do you think podcasts are compared to other means?
Yeah, look, I think they probably are fantastic. I just think it's pretty hard to get, the big numbers. So I still find social media a really powerful tool for building an audience. And the podcasting, I guess you've really got to love it too. Like I don't love a lot of the production side. I don't mind the hosting side. So it's a bit more complicated, I suppose. And I'd love someone, if anyone's a full-on hack and wants to support a podcast to do good things, hit me up. I need help.
I don't know, Tim. I just feel like I want to see your face on TV more, and you need your own show or something. I don't know, man. Like you probably already have that in the pipeline somewhere, but I just think you're a great front man, and you've probably heard that before. So I really hope to see more of you in the public space, man. I mean, you already got quite a presence on social media and other areas. So
no, it's probably something I need to do a bit more of. But it's been pretty busy building this organisation. I feel like now it's got the momentum. I can probably start to do more of that. So good advice.
And you just want to go for a surf too,
I've got to make sure I look after myself, sustainability first, right?
Actually, I meant to ask you some questions about surfing. Sorry, we're going off on a tangent, but you're a stand-up surfer. Do you ride shortboards, longboards?
Started out on the boog, and even today, I surfed a little reef today, but I took out my finless foamy, and so I was doing a mixture of booging on the really late ones, like little airdrops on the foamy, and then standing up on others. So I mix it up.
That's sick. Having fun.
Having fun. Making sure I had a smile on my dial.
Yeah, I'm in my 40s now, and I'm just having more fun with surfing than I think I've ever had. I just don't take it as serious, I took my son's foamy out the other day, and like you said, it was so small. I was just I was on my belly in the shore break, like bodyboarding the shorey, and then a few bigger ones came, and I stood up on them, and I was like, got my workout, my lungs are working, I'm breathing heavy, I feel great, and,
good stuff.
Start your day.
The sauce, yep.
All right, brother. Well, I'll get you to stay on the line, and we'll leave it there. So, you.